Straight ahead, thank you. A police officer in Albuquerque is now suing a liquor store after the business sold booze to a woman who allegedly drove drunk and almost killed him. But it's the suspect's argument in court that has him even more upset. Officer Bobby Dilley says he was insulted with a drunk driver's outrageous argument to get a better sentence. He calls it outrageous. Michelle Rivera is in prison for driving drunk and slamming into Officer Dilley on I-40 last year. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison. In court yesterday, her lawyer argued since Rivera didn't intend to hit him and since he's back on the job, she should spend less time behind bars.
Well, there's no doubt that he suffered significant injuries. He's also apparently made a full recovery at this time and not in danger of death.
The judge didn't buy Rivera's request. Dilley is suing Rivera and Bird of Paradise, the Albuquerque liquor store where investigators believe that Rivera bought her alcohol that night. This morning, police in Belen are trying to identify a body found in an irrigation canal north of town. Investigators say it appears to be the body of a man in his early or mid-20s. They say injuries on his body indicate he was murdered, but they're waiting for OMI to determine more. They believe he was killed somewhere else and then left there. 6:03 this morning, we could soon learn what will happen to two students who made a shooting threat on social media earlier this week. Ruidoso police tell us it started Tuesday morning with a Facebook post. One boy talking about shooting up Ruidoso High School, another boy commenting and agreeing with the idea. The 15 and 16-year-olds are both students. Police were called to the school. They searched both boys. No weapons were found, they say, and officers don't believe the teens have access to them. They told police it was a joke, but parents aren't laughing.
They shouldn't be joking about stuff on Facebook because that's scary to say something like that, you know. It's like it's a threat to the school.
When I did hear about it from my wife, you know, it definitely sent chills up my back, and you know, all kinds of different thoughts run through your mind, and I'm just thankful that it was a good turnout.
Those two students have since been suspended until the district can decide what happens next. Police are investigating a gun scare this morning that caused a lockdown at the New Mexico School for the Arts in Santa Fe. Investigators say a student showed an assistant principal a text that they got from an unknown number saying they had a gun yesterday. The assistant principal called Santa Fe police and the school was placed on lockdown. Police are trying to track down the phone number right now. Also developing now, U.S. Customs computers at airports across the country are back online this morning. A major glitch yesterday led to big delays at airports across the country. Officials say it all happened when the system that checks passengers against terrorism watch lists briefly experienced disruptions. Authorities say they do not think it was the result of a malicious attack. And happening now, California's lieutenant governor wants to strengthen the state's gun laws. A proposed 2016 ballot initiative would restrict ammunition sales. Gun owners would also be required to turn in assault-style magazines with big capacities. Gun owners would also need to report lost or stolen guns. If adopted, the law would make California the first state to make background checks necessary at the point of sale. Happening now, two parents are both in jail facing manslaughter charges after police say they beat their teen son to death. Police say this couple, along with other members of a church in New York, beat 19-year-old Lucas on Monday. It was allegedly a part of a spiritual counseling session. Authorities say his 17-year-old brother was also attacked. He's in critical condition this morning. They say the brothers were beaten over several hours while being told to confess to sins and ask for forgiveness. A neighbor says the family had strange habits.
The kid's 19, 20 years old. They don't let them drive a car. They stay in the house all the time. They don't associate with the public. So, you know, what do you call that?
The police complaint says that Lucas suffered injuries to his stomach, genitals, back, and thigh areas. Police say there could be more arrests. Happening today in Albuquerque, a two-day event helping veterans kicks off. Homeless and near homeless veterans will be able to get free clothing, legal advice, hot meals, and more. That event starts at 9 this morning at Noonday Ministries on 2nd Street. Today's event is for veterans only. Tomorrow's event from 9 to 2 will be open to non-vets as well. And tonight, the director of the New Mexico VA healthcare system will be in Santa Fe for a town hall. Two other top VA officials will be there as well. Veterans are welcome to have the opportunity, they say, to talk about VA-related issues with those officials. The town hall gets started at 6 and ends at 7:30 at the American Legion. Developing now, Albuquerque's west side could soon be the spot for a major development. The big empty area at the intersection of Coors and La Orilla could soon become the village at La Orilla. It's a mixed-use project. Right now, the one committed tenant for the area is Flick's Brewhouse, a cinema restaurant brewery. There are also plans for luxury townhomes.
The townhome residents can walk. We have a real nice walkway that will come down to the commercial site. And we've also tied in a walkway with the subdivision to the south.
That development still needs final approval from the Bernalillo County Commission, but developers say they hope to break ground this fall. 6:07 and developing this morning, the Animal Humane Adoption Center is closing its doors in the Northeast Heights. Officials say they are now seeing more foot traffic and adoptions at the main center at 615 Virginia, which recently underwent a $5.5 million renovation.
Because the Northeast Heights is only less than 6 miles away, we really don't have a need for that location at this point because more and more people are coming to our beautiful new campus here on Virginia Street.
After 5 years, the Adoption Center says they don't really have a need for the Montgomery location anymore. The West Side location is scheduled to open in January near Coors and Alameda. An Oklahoma City family is searching for whoever wrote a note and left it on their car. Dusty Stribel lives with muscular dystrophy. He's confined to a wheelchair. Recently, they walked out of a restaurant and found a note stuck to their car window. It questions whether Stribel is disabled and uses a swear word in it. Stribel's wife says their young daughter saw the note, and explaining it to her has been the hardest part. She shared the note to Facebook. It's already been shared beyond that hundreds of times. We're going to turn to overnight breaking news this morning. Deputies are investigating a deadly shooting in northeast Albuquerque. This is a live look at the scene right now. Information just into our newsroom explains a little bit more about what happened. Bernalillo County Sheriff's deputies say they were called out to the area near Osuna and 2nd Street about 3:30 this morning. When they arrived, they say they found a man's body lying in the driveway or in a driveway with what they say looks like a gunshot wound. At this point, they say it's unclear what led to the shooting.
We do have a couple of witnesses on scene that we're talking with and developing leads based off of that, and should have more information as the morning progresses.
It's unclear if the victim who was found dead in the driveway is the homeowner or if he was just in the area when the shooting happened. We will continue to monitor this story and bring you the very latest on air and on the KRQE News app. Meantime, an intersection in northeast Albuquerque is back open this morning after a deadly motorcycle crash. It happened just before 7 last night at Indian School in Eubank. Police say the crash happened when a car rear-ended the motorcycle, injuring the rider. The motorcyclist was taken to UNM Hospital where she died. Police say it does not appear alcohol or speed are factors. No word on if the driver of the car will be charged. 6:32 right now in this morning. Albuquerque Public Schools Chief Financial Officer is still waiting for an answer, he says, as to why he was placed on paid leave nearly 10 weeks ago, and no one seems to know why. Don Moya was suspended in August after Superintendent Luis Valentino mistakenly sent him texts meant for Secretary of Education Hannah Scandera saying he was going after Moya. Emails also surfaced later showing a dispute between Moya and former Deputy Superintendent Jason Martinez over vendors.
And I think it causes a lot of people to be very suspicious of, why he was put on leave in the first place and whether it's substantiated.
And Moya's lawyer says he's never been told why and has asked over and over again. APS won't say what's next, but every day that they don't decide what to do, Moya is getting paid. He's already earned close to $33,000 while not on the job.
So, the longer it goes, the more expensive it goes. And, I think it needs to get resolved one way or another.
Moya makes around $170,000 per year. He has also filed a whistleblower lawsuit against APS. Happening tomorrow, the state is expected to release park testing scores for high schoolers. Scores for grades 9 through 11 will be posted on the PED website. Education officials have warned parents to expect low scores. The state's education secretary, Hannah Scandera, says other states that have implemented the test have seen drops in scores of up to 40% in its first year. Scores for all other grades are expected to be released at the end of the month. Finding the right fit. Albuquerque Public Schools wants to make sure that students are getting everything they can out of their education. And it's why they're holding a school fair to showcase all of students' options within APS, from traditional schools to dual language and charters. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is in the Newsplex with the details. Catherine?
Good morning, Adam. Representatives with APS say the landscape has changed a lot in public education over the last decade or so. They say that's led them to create new choices for students.
If you're someone who's interested in science and technology, we have several of those schools to choose from. We have bilingual schools. We have schools that are focused on project learning. Just about anything that you can imagine that's addressed now through private schools or different charters are offered through Albuquerque Public Schools.
Executive Director of Communications Monica Armenta says there are about 100 schools from which students can choose. They include the college and career high over on CNM's campus. There, students can graduate from high school with both a high school diploma and an associate's degree. Armenta says that's a savings of thousands of dollars for parents or students who would have had to fork over for expenses like textbooks and parking. Now, last year was APS's first school choice fair. Now, even though it was cold and rainy, thousands ended up turning out, said Armenta. She says they're hoping for the same this year. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Catherine. The fair is this afternoon from 4 to 7 at the convention center. It is free, but parking is limited, so you'll want to get there early. Happening now, several demonstrators remain in Baltimore City Hall this morning after a city council committee voted to make the interim police commissioner a permanent fixture in the city. The protests come 6 months after the death of Freddie Gray that sparked protests around the city. The confirmation hearing is to weigh in on the future of Commissioner Kevin Davis. It turned into a full-blown protest when protesters say council would not let them ask the commissioner questions. Davis replaces Anthony Batts, who was fired months ago. And developing now in Israel, officials are stepping up security measures after more than a dozen stabbing attacks in the last 2 weeks. Hundreds of soldiers are on patrol throughout the country this morning, and roadblocks have been set up around some Arab neighborhoods. The random attacks have prompted widespread talk of a third Palestinian uprising. Also happening this morning, we're hearing for the first time the frantic 911 call involving former NBA star Lamar Odom, who was found unresponsive outside a Las Vegas brothel.
I need to hurry, please, because he's got blood coming out of his nose, white stuff coming out of his mouth. They can't get him to wake up. He's like almost not breathing. Okay, is he conscious? Excuse me? Is he conscious? No. And he has white stuff coming out of his mouth? And blood coming out of his nose?
E-News is reporting that Odom was on drugs, but the owner of the brothel tells police that, he says that police told him there were no signs of drugs. The sheriff says blood tests will be performed. Deputies are searching for a man who they say kidnapped an 82-year-old woman near Las Cruces. Doña Ana County deputies have issued a warrant for 42-year-old Andrew Cerna. They believe that Cerna tricked the woman by claiming he had chased off a burglar at her home and wanted to take her to the police department to report it. That's when the woman says Cerna forced her into his car and took off. She begged him to stop and get her something to drink. That's when authorities say the woman ran into a convenience store and told the clerk. Cerna is still on the run. He's charged with false imprisonment, burglary, and auto theft. 6:38 now. A pair of tourists are sending letters making sure that everyone from the Santa Fe police chief to the governor know about one officer's good deed when they got lost.
She was starting to panic and I was getting a little ill at ease. You know how it is when you get lost in an area.
These first-time Santa Fe visitors from Texas found themselves in the back of a police car after getting lost and having trouble walking. Worried they'd be late for the shuttle to their hotel, they flagged down an officer to ask for directions. Instead, that officer offered them a ride in his patrol car, and they happily accepted.
And she goes, "It's really uncomfortable." I said, "Well, Ann, it's not meant to be comfortable."
If we can give all these drunk people a ride different places, we can give tourists a ride, huh?
A husband says she wanted to recognize an officer for something positive at a time when police are under scrutiny. Pretty cool.